of its mind. I am starting on Facebook. Hey, good Wednesday evening to you guys. And once again, it's me, your happy, hairy, humble host, Bill Sylvie. Now, I screwed the pooch on scheduling this week, guys. Kyle was not available in the time bracket, and I just kind of plowed ahead with the scheduling without first saying, hey, you're going to be available. So here I sit in my Palace Arcade hat, almost all by my lonesome, but for our esteemed guest. He's an all-around great guy. Now, you know, it is rare that I or anyone else actually gets to say, I have a founding member of TSR on my live stream tonight. Like a person who was in the delivery room at the birth of Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm happy to say I have one now. He's a great guy, a good friend of mine. If you've never seen him on this live stream before, you're in for a treat. And if you have, you're still in for a treat. Ladies and gentlemen, original D&D artist, Tracy Lesch. Tracy, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, good to be back. It's been a while.
It has been a couple of days, hasn't it?
Oh, yes.
It's great to have you here. Tracy's going to be showing us, I think you're going to be showing us some artwork here in a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, we're going to shoot the breeze because it is Wednesday and it's that wonderful time. And we have a hello from Vinny not a Bartolo, not to be confused with a Bartolo. He is not a Bartolo.
Hey, Vinny.
He's over on YouTube. Greetings to you. So what's been going on, man? How have you been? I mean, I get to see you in the virtual sense every Monday night at the AD&D table.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm usually trying to kill you. So it's a little bit more of a laid back kind of thing right now. So how have you been? What's been going on, man?
Well, it's been a challenging year, and I'm just going to be a little bit transparent with all you folks. Like I've had to deal with a lot of health issues. I've had a bout with cancer. I had a pulmonary embolism. I had to have a heart ablation to like reset the rhythm of my heart because that was giving me trouble. And I ended up also going through a bout of sepsis in the hospital, which is like dangerous and not so fun. Taking like a lot of antibiotics of all sorts and kinds. So it's been tough. I haven't gotten everything done that I wanted to do here in 2021, but I'm hoping next year is going to be a little bit better, a little more productive. I've gotten to do some new art, which I'll show you. I was hoping to have a lot more. There's a series that I'm basing off of Bill's Monday night game, utilizing the character I'm playing. And so I use vignettes from the game of what's been happening to create these. And I'm just doing a whole series based on my thief, who is named Kane. But anyway, back to the original question. It's been a challenging year, but I've had a lot of good friends and family lift me up, including people like Bill, and the people in our Monday night game have been so kind and gracious and loving. That makes up for a lot of stuff right there.
Well, you know, we love you to pieces, Tracy. It's always a lot of fun to have you at the gaming table. And I mean, you know, it is always such an incredible thrill. Now for those of you who might not know Tracy's artwork, and to be 100% fair, Tracy's an original D&D artist. He and TSR parted ways after the OD&D and other projects he's going to talk about. But, you know, if you're a fan of Stranger Things, and you should be, it's a great TV show. Of course, you'll know that the monster name given in the second season, of course, they fought, the Mind Flayer. And I remember Dustin is trying to explain. I gotta reach over and get this. Dustin is trying to explain to Hopper. He's like, oh, it's a Mind Flayer, and he opens the monster manual and points. There's a tight zoom in on the illustration here. You've all got a monster manual. I know you do. I don't have to zoom in on this, but there's the Mind Flayer. And what you folks might not know is the Mind Flayer didn't originate in AD&D. It was an OD&D creation, and it was an OD&D creation crafted by the hands of none other than our guest. So I think that's a good jumping off point. Tell us about old Squid Face. How'd you come up with that little bit of nightmare fuel?
Well, and this is also detailed in the book Art and Arcana, put out by, I believe it's 10 Speed Press, with such luminaries writing it like Michael Whitmer and his name is slipping me. John Peterson.
John Peterson, Mike Whitmer, yeah.
Who's just a genius when it comes to the history of all this stuff. And Michael had interviewed me and asked the same question. Well, how did it come about? Well, I was working closely with Gary at that time. And keep in mind, I was just a kid. I was like 14 years old. And so here's this guy. It's like very almost intimidating. And he's telling me the idea, sort of giving me some loose guidelines to go by to create the Mind Flayer. There wasn't one. There was no visual reference. And about all he said was, he mentioned the squid-like head and the tentacles, and that's about all. He didn't tell me, put him in a robe or anything like that. I did that, and he had me simultaneously working on another monster called the Roper. And again, there was no visual template for either one of those. So I told him what I, kind of pictured when he told me about the Mind Flayer. Again, this is in Art and Arcana as well, but I told him I visualized him as sort of being a sort of like Ming the Merciless type of character from Flash Gordon, with an Imperial robe and
right,
but having the psionic power and just really evil. And it just kind of like went around my head, and I sketched it out, and it became the Mind Flayer. And the Roper, yeah, there we go. That's from I think that's Blackmore.
Yes, I believe that is where they make their first appearance. That's your first art was in Blackmore. Was it not?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, Blackmore did Eldritch Wizardry, Boot Hill, and a slew of other stuff that I know I'm probably forgetting about. But anyway, to make a long story short, so this is what I came up with, and I brought that back to Gary, and he was like super happy with it. He said, "That is it." He says, "You have done what I've asked you to do. You have set the look for these two monsters." And I was like over the moon. I was like, I pleased him. That's great,
Yep. And I mean, that's let me see here. That is, I saw this this term. It just I think it just got overused for such a long time. iconic monsters. But the Mind Flayer really is iconic. I mean, there's a new Baldur's Gate game out, if that's your jam, computer games. The bad guys are Mind Flayers. I mean, again, Stranger Things, the Mind Flayer. There's a whole raft of stuff that runs through late second edition AD&D that's all about the Mind Flayers. And they all have that iconic look that you created.
I even have a Funko Pop of the Mind Flayer, and it looks just like mine.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is nice. That's got to be pleasing. And I know, like, it is the way. And I say this as someone who creates also. No, we don't get bags of money. Like when I say, hey, you should go out and buy a copy of The Lost Crypt, which Tracy and I both worked on.
Yeah, that was great.
It's not, it's not because I'm going to get a cardboard box full of 20s, or Tracy's going to get a check from Frog God. That's not a complaint. That's reality. But as a creative person, it's got to be so just such a thrill for you to see things that have filtered down into the street level of pop culture consciousness and go, yeah, I created that. Not, I had a hand in that. Not, I said, hey, Gary, he should be wearing a robe. No, you created the Mind Flayer as it's understood to this day. Yes, there have been variations on it. Dave Sutherland's Mind Flayer in the Monster Manual, longer face tentacles.
Yeah.
And just, some people have added or deleted certain features and so on, but it remains the same. It's a Giger-esque horror who the fundamentals of one of those 4 tentacles hitting you and probing through your body to get to your brain and have a light snack before erasing the minds of the rest of the party. It just, you created a look, and it's beyond merely saying, yeah, I influenced the Mind Flayer design. It's all this guy right here.
And I'll bet you too, when Gary was thinking about it, he was probably influenced by Lovecraft, I would imagine, with the tentacles and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because Gary, hello, Aaron Smith over on Facebook. What was it? I think you might know the origin of this quote, but I think it was Picasso who said, "Great artists steal." And that, there's a lot of emotional baggage that goes along with that statement. So, somebody might get their hackles up and say, are you calling me a thief? No, I think if you take a film class, any, instructor, if you're taking a university level film class or drama or stage drama, is going to tell you, look, there's 4 kinds of plot. That's it. And the Greeks already invented them. But to say you move forward and you build on those things doesn't mean you don't create something that is unique and wonderful. And Gary, pinching from Lovecraft to give you inspiration to create the Ithalid, the Mind Flayer, that's just an example of how we move forward and, how we build on great things.
I have a quick story about how iconic it actually must have become.
Let's hear it.
So I was at the grocery store, and in the parking lot, my wife and I met this gentleman, like older gentleman, but still into D&D. And we were just tickled at that. And we struck up this conversation, and we were talking about, playing D&D, and I was telling him about the Bill's game and stuff like that. And then I was then Shelby, my wife. She was like, "Well, you're talking to an original D&D artist." And he was like, "Oh, really? And what did you do?" And I said, "Well, for one, I made the Mind Flayer," and he instantly said, "I hate you," without missing a beat. I was like, "Mind Flayer," and he goes, "I hate you." Obviously, he's run into a few in his games, but that was kind of cool. I was like, "Hey, this is wild. This guy knows the Mind Flayer," and that was cool.
Right on. He's gotten his brain tickled a couple of times.
And he's still playing.
Good for him, man. That's awesome. So
now, the roper, I had originally drawn a picture of Norman Fell, but that didn't go over very well. So we scrapped that idea and went with the other one.
Yeah, I imagine, Mr. Roper, everybody, I think, who comes to D&D has made that joke, because I guess Three's Company hit like right around the time D&D was starting to peak. So I am sure every dungeon master has had to put up with "Come and knock on our door." Has it got an annoying wife too? If we kill it, is Don Knotts going to show up? It's yeah. But
Don Knotts as an elf fighter, that would be good.
Yes.
Karate.
So I gotta ask, when you were drawing the Mind Flayer, I mean, did Gary say like this is its powers? Work with that idea a little bit, or did he just say, look, I need something scary with looks like it sneezed out some calamari?
No, he mentioned the fact that it was going to have like mind powers, and so for me, being a comics book fan, I started thinking about Professor X from the X-Men and all the stuff that he could do mentally. And I took it to mean that. So like, I'm thinking, okay, he can probably telepathically hear, probably can do like a mind blast at somebody, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even know about what the psionic powers would be, only that they were, powers of the mind. And that's why when you look at the drawing, it's got sort of like, little indicators around the head.
Yeah, like the energy wave going out. Which Dave Southern, actually, I think the other illustration, not to detract from yours, but if you guys crack your monster manual and look under Flayer, Mind, there's a Tom Wham illustration underneath Dave Sutherland's that copies that exact thing. He's got the lightning bolts of thought power haloing his head there. And I always thought that Tom Wham's drawing in the monster manual was the creepier of the two, because it's got like that. Like, I'm sure you've been unfortunate enough to see a jack chick tracked in your life. Like how subtly creepy he could make the artwork, just slightly unsettling. And that's like Tom's. Like you glance at it, the devils are arguing over taking this guy to hell, and then like the more you look at it, the more it makes your skin crawl. And Tom Wham's Mind Flayer illo of the two that are in the monster manual is that same way, because he does have your thought beams around his head, and here's a party, and it's like, the party's getting, oh god, the party's about to, it's yikes. So
love Tom Wham.
Yeah,
played many Snit's Revenge games.
Snit's Revenge. What was
The Awful Green Things from Outer Space.
Awful Green Things from Outer Space. Tom is, and I'll tell you, I've got Tom's autograph in my monster manual.
Cool. And very cool.
He does. Now, I don't know if this is true. You hung out with him more than I did, but like I always found him to be a very engaging fellow, but he does a good curmudgeon. At least I was digging in my backpack to get the Monster Manual because it's got some Tom Wham bits in it, and I had to reach in and I got out my Dungeon Master's Guide, which doesn't have any of his art in it, and I didn't do anything in there. None of my art's in there. I'm like, I have to move this to get to the Monster Manual. But yeah, Tom was a lot of fun. Did you now we had talked about this yesterday, about some of the folks you game with, and I guess you played you just mentioned some of the board games. You played some Awful Green Things and Snit's Revenge and Snit Smasher. Because there were 2 Snits games, right?
I only remember Revenge.
Okay. All right. But did you you played some of Tom's games with him?
Yeah, and a lot of the I don't know, do you want me to mention some of the other folks?
Yeah, man, really no. It's your stage, it's your mic. Go for it.
A lot of these folks are around. You can find them on social media and stuff. But when I was just starting to do like the illustration work, I had not ever heard of an RPG. I didn't know what an RPG was. And I was so lucky because there were a lot of people that were willing to invite me to their games and, and join the party and stuff like that. People like Skip Williams, who I remember used to work in the store. So I'd see him all the time. And Jeff Leeson, who's just awesome. He was just a great guy, great friend. Dave Conant, even Ernie. I gamed with Ernie a couple times. And we were actually going to do a project together, and it never we never got it off the ground. I don't know what happened, but he walked all the way from I'm trying to think of how far it was, but we lived out in the boonies. We had built a house out in the farmland. It was about like at least an hour away from Lake Geneva. And we had railroad tracks that ran behind our house down the road. And if you got on those railroad tracks and walked it, you could walk right into Lake Geneva. So one day, Ernie did the same thing just to get to my house so we could talk about doing this project together. And he mentioned it to me when I saw him at GaryCon. And I had like kind of forgotten about it. And he's like, yeah, we were going to do a project together. Oh. And I'm like, well, maybe we still should. Give me a call sometime,
I tell you, the gaming and gaming art world would jump for joy, I think, if they saw that come to fruition.
That could be a lot of fun.
It definitely could. Now I've met Ernie just a couple of times. Just kind of like I've occasionally messaged him on Facebook, and just a hi Ernie kind of thing, not like, hey, we're best buddies or anything like that. But I've always found him to be a very genteel yet energetic fellow. In my dealings.
I think he's a great guy.
Yes. So yeah. Now you got to know. I was going to ask this. Do you have like any idea what it was? Like a D&D adventure, a separate game, what?
What do you mean? The first time I played?
No. When the idea that Ernie had, yeah. And I understand if it's kind of something you want to play a little close to your vest.
No, I really don't remember any of the details. I think the most I could tell you was I believe it was going to be like another sort of D&D type of thing, but it never came about, sadly enough. I don't even know why we didn't follow through with it. But I mean, the mists of time have a tendency to kind of fog everything over after a while, and you just got to kind of try to put as much of the pieces together as you can. But Ernie was a great DM, as I remember, and as were people like Rob Kuntz and Terry Kuntz. I thought they were awesome, super smart, really good adventures. I know I'm missing somebody here, and if one of you out there says, "Hey, what about me?" I apologize that I'm forgetting you were at the table, but these folks also, I mean, aside from D&D, I had never even heard of games like, the Avalon Hill games. And these guys were kind enough to nursemaid me through playing things like Stalingrad and Gettysburg. And I think I talked about this with you the other day. Was it Panzer Blitz? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, Panzer Blitz. I think if you could take any term of warfare that the Germans engaged in from 1938 all the way up to 1945, Avalon Hill released a bookcase game named that. I'm serious. Blitzkrieg, Panzer Blitz, Kriegspiel, just on and on and on and on.
And there was another one we played too. Let me know if I'm getting the name wrong. Was it called Diplomacy?
Yes, Diplomacy was an Avalon Hill game. Diceless. You literally just had to argue with people. It was incredible.
Yeah. It was like a debate.
Yeah.
A debate team.
It was a debate role-playing game, was Diplomacy. I am told, and I would not be surprised if this was the truth, but I have heard from many people that, now I've gone blank. Henry Kissinger actually, as a leisure activity, plays the Avalon Hill game Diplomacy. I cannot fathom why anyone would want to play against him. Like what?
Yeah.
Well, kids, Grandpa is feeling like playing a game. Why do you not go into the study? And I will. And he said, nope. I tell you what, we're gonna drag the Xbox out and do some Final Fantasy 13 because I'm not sitting down and getting browbeaten by you for 4 hours into giving up Austria-Hungary.
I think we're just going to pull out Dungeon and
yeah, exactly. Let's let some dice make some decisions for us. But Dungeon, that's an interesting touch, a nice segue there, because you illustrated the first edition of Dungeon, did you not?
I did. I did the illos for the cards, and now the board was done by the person that originated it, because they gave me a bunch of stuff when I worked on Dungeon, including like the prototype map. And I don't remember who put it together, but I had the original, and it was like on cardboard that was like all attached together. You could fold it out. And it was just, it was basic. It was just like it was outlining all the little squares and, where you would go. The little, I think they were like shaped like stones and so on to look like a dungeon floor.
Yep.
And so I had the original, and it had like all the stones and stuff like pasted onto it. If somebody has that today, they probably could sell that for a pretty penny, I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah. The collector's market of stuff, like foundational stuff, things that were like, original artworks and manuscripts and so on. It's through the roof, the idle rich. And let me tell you something. I just to not to detract from our conversation, I have gone round and round with Paul Stormberg about collecting Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I think if it exists and it was printed, and there are like, there is a way to make it available to the gaming community at large, do it. I am not angered or upset by the presence of the alleged presence, because I don't know, because I don't have one, and if I had one, I wouldn't keep it. I would dispose of it. But of the WinterCon original Lost Caverns of Sojkonth that Lost Sojkonth that Gary wrote. But if such a thing existed in PDF form, I would hope that people would have that. With that said, lest Paul furiously flood my Facebook feed with comments, I had to stop the alliteration there. In the case of things like original pieces of artwork, I think it's fantastic that those get picked up and sold and basically treated like museum pieces, like artifacts and exhibits, which is how they should, because you guys were so foundational in creating what you created in this hobby. What you created should be preserved. I mean, I can't imagine a day goes by that a grandchild or great-grandchild of Joe Shuster doesn't desperately wish he had Grandpa's original sketches of Superman. You know?
Yeah.
Those are important things. I mean, I've said this before. I've done whole shows about this. I've talked to other TSR luminaries, yourself included, in the past. Without D&D, from a cultural standpoint, I don't just even necessarily mean a pop cultural standpoint. From a cultural standpoint, the landscape of the latter half of the late 20th century would be radically different. It would be radically different. And what you guys created, Dave McGarry's pasted on map, your history notebook with sketches and so on, without those items, I think it would be a much duller world. It would be a much, much duller world. So you're absolutely right when you say, I think, people would pay a pretty penny for it. If I was idle rich, I'd be buying all that stuff up left, right, and center.
Yeah, it's just too bad that I was never allowed to have my original artwork back. And I asked for it, and they told me flat out, no, we're like keeping that in our files, and we're holding on to that. I was like, oh, okay. So the only thing I ended up with was like, and I've shown you some. Maybe I'll drag some out, but some of the unpublished pieces that I did. You've got one right behind you there.
I do. This is from now. My Swiss cheese memory. I know that you created this for Dungeons and Dragons, and this isn't like colorized for me or colorized later by you. It was a color piece. So obviously it was intended for, or it was created at a period of time when TSR was upping the standard in terms of a production quality. Going from basically Reader's Digest sized black and white pasteboard covered booklets to something of a much higher grade quality. But only over my shoulder do people know your color contribution to D&D artwork. So tell us a little bit about this print, what it was intended for, and maybe what happened to that. And we have a couple of comments over on Facebook, and guys, if you're watching over on Facebook, we will come back to you, but go ahead and tell us about this. And before you start, just a quick clarification, folks. This is not the original. Okay. Tracy has the original piece. He was kind enough to have a canvas print done for me. I had somebody jump one day during a conversation and was like, I will buy that from you. It's like, I would sell that to you. Probably not, actually, but I couldn't in a clear conscience do that, even if I wanted to. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. No, glad. I'm actually kind of tickled to hear that. It gives me hope that if I sell some stuff in the future, there's going to be people out there that will actually put down money to get it. So, but that piece was part of a number of ones I'd done. They're if you think of them, they're like sort of like audition pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, well, if you can do these, we don't know exactly what we will do with them yet, but if you could just show us this or show us that, that would be great. And so this one came about because, I did like all black and white stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and TSR asked, well, can you do color? So I was like, well, hell yeah, I can do color. And so this was a painting. It's actually a watercolor. And it was one of the color pieces that I did to show them that I was actually able to do stuff like that. Sort of like some of the other guys at TSR. Because I had never done a painting for them before. But I
Okay.
wanted to show them that, hey, I can do it if you, tell me what you want.
Okay, so this was not for a specific TSR product. This was not like this would have been the cover of Basic D&D, and by the way, that would have been a fantastic cover. All respect to Dave Sutherland, that's a beautiful piece that he did. But I mean, come on, there's got to be an alternate universe where that's the cover of Basic D&D. That's what people grew up with in Basic D&D, and I am completely happy knowing that.
Mm-hmm. Or a monster manual, it would have been good for.
Or a monster manual, or a player's handbook, because what's more iconic than a player attacking? So that there was not, they didn't, that was a show us what you got in the way of color art thing, rather than we want this on spec. Okay, well, we changed our minds. We're not gonna. Okay, that's cool to know.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, did you do any other color examples for them, or is that the sole one?
Actually, I did. And if you want to see it, I can show it to you.
Yes, please do. Please just.
Okay, let me. Do this here.
Yeah, and I apologize
if I do something wrong technically, let me know.
Okay. Just a quick to everyone watching, I do apologize for the freeze frame but with audio thing. That's just the nature of having a somewhat robust PC to stream with. But what you got for us there?
Okay. Well, this is a bigger. I'll show the bigger one of the serpent.
Mm-hmm. And let's we'll bring that focus in. You guys can check that out.
And that was done back in '79.
Okay.
I was graduating high school.
Wow. So you were with, and to be clear, when we say with TSR, you were submitting art, I guess, on a contractual basis all the way to '79, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating. I mean, most folks know your stuff from the earlier digest days, as it were, of D&D. But here you are, right at the point where D&D starts to hockey stick, and you're still with TSR. What was the latest published piece that you did for them?
Oh gosh. Yikes.
I gotcha.
Memory fails me. Yeah, you stumped me on that one.
You were okay. So we'll. I think if we put our heads together, we can get a little bit more than a dull thud. You did artwork in Supplement 2. You did artwork in Supplement 3, Eldritch Wizardry. There was no artwork to speak of in Gods, Demigods, and Heroes, but you also did Boot Hill and an unpublished version of Warriors of Mars.
Yeah. And I think it was going to be titled Barsoom to go with the other one.
Right.
But then, as you know, there was like a legal brouhaha.
Yeah.
With the estate of Burroughs, I think.
Yeah. Even, I guess, Burroughs had passed away in the... I don't know. Maybe someone in our audience can check that out. But Edgar Rice Burroughs it was not that far removed from the 1970s. And even at that time, copyright post-author death was still protected for a number of decades. I mean, if ERB passed away in 1974, I still don't think his works would be public domain, as some of them are becoming now. So yeah, the Burroughs estate stepped on TSR pretty firmly when they published Warriors of Mars. So unfortunately, your supplement probably suffered from that cannonade from a lawyer somewhere.
Which is really sad for me, because I had some stuff that I was really proud of. I think I was telling you about I did sort of like almost a Frazetta-esque piece with Carter and like surrounded by Bants.
Mm-hmm.
And it just turned out so well. It's a shame that it didn't get published, and even more of a shame that they didn't give it back to me. They just like held on to it. But somewhere there may be somebody who's got it pinned up on their wall, for all I know.
Maybe. That's one of the things. A great deal of the classic art from D&D days, I would love to see the light of day. I would love it to see the light of day again someday, and I sincerely hope that one day someone can unearth your works so we can see them all in their original format.
That'd be nice.
So we have a question over on Facebook from Vinny Notabartolo, who asks, how complete was Dungeon when Dave Migary presented it to TSR?
Well, if I'm going by the things that I actually had in my hands, which were supposed to inspire me to get my work done for the game, not very much. Not very much. I didn't see much more than the actual design of the board. Mm-hmm. And when it was actually printed, I think they did it on like a glossy paper.
Okay.
I'm not sure it was actually on like cardstock or whatever you would call that they use for like the board games. I don't think it was like that.
I think it's either, is it Masonite? No, Masonite's like heavier stuff, but yeah, I think it's just like a heavy pasteboard or cardboard.
Yeah. It's an impressive layout for the board game. So I was like, oh, this is so cool to be working on this.
It is. It's a trip. Now, kind of an
I hope that answers Vinny's question.
Well, I hope it does. We'll find out when we look on Facebook.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yes, thank you very much, Vinny, for your question. We also have a compliment. Love that painting, which I can only surmise is this. I've become a fan of the various works and styles from the TSR days, and he sends his thanks for answering the question. Apparently that nailed it. So
here's another color one I'll put up.
Okay.
We don't have to keep looking at the serpent.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's a nice piece too. I rather like that one.
Yeah, I called it the Berserker.
It's a good one. I love the sepia tones in it. The gold on the belt and everything. It's just the composition is very nice. Now, I don't think any, and I know you've talked about this before, and probably some of the audience has heard this before, but I don't think any discussion of your artwork at TSR is complete without talking about Boot Hill.
Yeah.
The original Boot Hill, which was like OD&D, Chainmail, Tractics, Warriors of Mars, and on, was a digest-sized game. But your artwork, I think, is probably in the annals of Dungeons & Dragons art rather unique in terms of how it came together, because of who participated with you in the art. So pass the mic over to you. Tell us about Boot Hill and the artwork for it.
Well, one of the best things I can say about it is that my father, Charles, actually got to do a piece for it as well. And my dad was kind of he was a commercial artist at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And when it came to putting together the art for Boot Hill, his suggestion to me was, well, instead of just doing a bunch of static scenes, with cowboys and horses and everything, why don't you take actual events from history and do drawings of that? So I got to learn about a lot of stuff at the same time. Like one of the pictures in it, and I wish I had the art to show you guys, but I do not. It was a handkerchief duel between Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday. A handkerchief duel, you both held on to like the end of a handkerchief, and you couldn't let go of it. So you're like 3 feet between you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an actual historical event where Doc Holliday, I think it was Doc Holliday that called Johnny Ringo out. They were in front of like I think they said it was a pharmacy, and they were like, enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And Ringo was like, well, I can shoot you from here right now. And Holliday was like, well, yeah, but can you shoot me from 3 feet away? And so they engaged in they were going to engage in the handkerchief duel. So that was one scene, and then there was another scene with Wild Bill Hickok doing what's called a trying to remember, like a roadhouse draw on somebody. So I had that in there, and I think there were one or two more. And then my father had one which was like a scene in a saloon, and he did the scene of a gaming table, and like there's one guy who's like just sitting back in a chair with his gun, and the gun is smoking, and everybody else around the table is slumped over dead on the table. And Gary thought it was like the coolest thing. And nice. I was like, hey, that's my dad. A great artist in his own right.
I am looking for. Do you have the Boot Hill cover that you a print of the Boot Hill cover that you can show us? I have one to hand if you don't.
I'm trying to think of where let me. Not sure where I have it stored. Hold on just a second. I'm going to look for it real quick.
Now, I do not have a first edition Boot Hill. It like we've discussed in the stream, it is a rare thing, and getting one's hands on it is a matter of a good deal of coin. I've only seen, like, in people who've taken pictures to show the interior of the book, the condition of the interior of the book in eBay sales and such, I've seen little, just tantalizing little amount. There we go. You guys can take that in. But I've seen tantalizing amounts of a little bit of your artwork in there. Now, I know that in the center of the book, I think it's in the center of the book. Again, I don't have a copy. I've never even heard of anyone having a PDF copy of the original Boot Hill. But I think in the center of the book, there are maps. There are actual maps of saloons and inns and so on, so that the avid wargamer can, build up with some Lincoln logs or some of those newfangled Lego pieces, their own saloon for fighting with their 54 millimeter Elastalin cowboys. Did you do that cartography also? Was that you and your dad, or was that someone else?
That was somebody else.
Okay.
And there was another artist named Seaton, Seaton. I think it was K. Seaton.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some drawings in there as well. And I don't know if anybody else did. There were a couple of drawings where somebody had taken like a historical picture of like a Calamity Jane or something, people like that. And it was Belle Starr, and they did like just a pencil illustration of that, and I think that went into the book along with a couple other ones.
So you bring up an interesting point there when you mention working not just with your dad, but there being other artists who worked on projects at TSR. And, I've talked to Al Hammock and, of course, Skip Williams and the great and mighty Jim Ward. And they've all talked about, funny stories from around the office. And I know you were a younger man at that time. Younger. That's it. So, the past isn't like when I was young. No, when I was younger. I'm reminded of I can't remember the comedian now, but he said, "You ever have somebody say, 'Here's a picture of me when I was younger'? When the hell would it be? Show me a picture of you when you were older. I want to see that camera."
Yeah.
But anyway, so I know you being a younger man at the time, did you meet any of the other artists, or was it just a case of bring drawings to Gary, drawings go in stuff?
Pretty much the latter. Yeah, it was pretty much the latter. I mainly worked from whatever Gary told me.
Okay. The Ranger, another great illustration. This was, so this is 77. This is before the Ranger is even codified in D&D, because you guys have got to remember the Player's Handbook doesn't drop until mid-78, I think. Call me out on that if I'm not right, D&Ders, but so was this another was this on spec but then passed on, or did you draw this and offer it? And in either case, did you know going ahead? Well, this just caused an explosion of questions in my mind. So, was this on spec, or was this something that you created as a, hey, potential piece of artwork for the guys at TSR, or was it just for fun?
It wasn't on spec because at that time, we were paid very low. And it was still sort of like a flying by the seat of your pants sort of thing in many cases. I hate to say that. It wasn't like super organized and a big corporate thing.
Sure.
It was just kind of like, hey, let's do this, and we'll do this for the fans and put this in there. And this, so we had bandied the idea about that there were going to be, let's call this a like a profile,
Mm-hmm.
or I don't know, you might call it a vignette. I'm not sure, but to do like some of the major sort of characters that you would see. We talked about doing like a Hobbit, and sort of down like the Lord of the Rings thing, which is why there's like some Lord of the Rings references in the background,
Yeah, I'm seeing that a little bit. Yeah.
like the crowning.
Yeah,
Why am I blanking out?
Aragorn being crowned
Yeah,
and so on.
Aragorn,
Yeah.
Aragorn. Yeah, and then some of the monsters from the dark. Uh, yeah, we've got like a fire back here with some ruins, like a castle, like siege of Minas Tirith, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But we had bandied about doing like a series of these, and I said, well, this is how I would envision them to look like. You would like have each one with the title, like the Hobbit or the Halfling,
Mm-hmm.
the Elf, et cetera, and do just like a bunch of characters that could be inserted into rule books.
Okay. So at this time, I guess the next question then is, I mean, obviously, and this actually kind of came up in a discussion. Jim Ward made a post about this on Facebook the other day, dealing with post Gary management at TSR. Before the Blooms started bringing in business consultants and such, artists got a good lead in, artists and writers both. Well, a writer is an artist, but I think folks will understand what I mean. They got a lead in on, hey, 6 months from now, we're releasing a book about mountain dwarves. So we're going to a cover artist and, we want a mountain dwarfy kind of cover and, appropriate illustrations. And this guy was from the toy industry, the capital T toy industry, not the hobby games industry. And he said, no, you can't. It's financial ruin to try and plot stuff 6 months back. You got to jump on things like when they're hot. So, like a month. And I mean, I know you did Tomb of Horrors in a month, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine a product in the days of hardback D&D books and so on, being, artists and creators being told, hey, you got a month to make a 75,000 word hardback with tables and charts and maps and illustrations and cover art and forward and afterward and playtest and all that. So did you have kind of advanced knowledge going ahead? Like, did you know, what did you know and when did you know it about,
Oh, could you hold that thought, Bill? And I need to step away for just a sec. I'll be right back.
Of
This
course.
is like a medical on my
Not
on
at
my
all.
end.
Not at all.
I'll be right back. But maybe you can tell folks how we met. That would be kind of
Sure,
cool.
sure. So this is kind of a fun story. I got my copy of Art and Arcana, and like all of you guys, dug into it. I was just like, I gotta get in on this because, we all know Errol Otis, Dave Trampier, David Sutherland, Darlene, David S. LaForce, Jeff D., Jim Rosloff. I mean, the list just goes on and on. When I first got into OD&D, I was kind of surprised because I didn't see any of the illustrations, or any, with the exception of some early work by Dave Sutherland. I didn't see any of those names in OD&D books. I saw Greg Bell. I saw G.K. Fleming. I saw Tracy's gonna murder me when I get back because I can't remember the young lady's name now. She did the cover art for Eldritch Wizardry, but I saw these names and I was like, well, who are these people? You know, and I hope my voice didn't crack that bad when I said it to myself. But who are these people? You know, I just, and it seemed like there was such a narrow window that they had done this art, and then the names that I grew up with because I played AD&D and AD&D modules, and even basic D&D modules, you know, had different artists. So when I got Art and Arcana and I started to read about Greg Bell, Tracy, go ahead and embarrass me. Who is the young lady who did the cover art for Eldritch Wizardry that caused such a kerfuffle? Because it's the
Deborah Larson.
Deb Larson, yes, Deb Larson, and so on. And I was telling folks, you know, I didn't know any of you guys when I started collecting OD&D, so it was a big scene missing. And then when I got Art and Arcana and I started looking through Art and I'm like, okay, yes, these are actual living, breathing people. And I read the section, you know, you talked about your contributions to OD&D and so on. And I was like, well, this guy sounds like a really fascinating person. I'd like to chit chat with him. And I friended you on Facebook and you friended me back. And lo and behold, I found out you're right in my neck of the woods. So I was like, man, I got to get this guy's autograph on my copy of Art and Arcana or some of my other OD&D ephemera. So we went down to the greatest comic book store in existence, which is Gods and Monsters, run by my dear friends Todd and Anna, down on International Drive. Tracy and I met up there. Gosh, I guess it's been 3-4 years ago now.
Yeah.
So
we did
met
a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. We met down there, and, you know, it's been a fun ride ever since. So that is how I met Tracy Lesch. He's, right in my neck of the woods. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, cool, for your endless spewing out of people's private details and metadata. To be fair, it's a switch you could flip, and I wouldn't have seen that at the time. You were, you know, wherever you were located prior to where you are now in this neck of the woods. So, but anyway, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the not at all exciting story of, I mean, I was excited, and it was neat to meet one of the foundational people of Dungeons and Dragons, but,
I was excited.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Gosh, let's see. We were talking about meeting people for our... Oh, yes. I think we would be remiss, at least for our new viewers. Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can bring that one up. Well, there we go. A lovely ghoul or zombie. You, now, if you have the deluxe, that you meaning other people, I know Tracy has one and I have one, but if you have the deluxe version of Art and Arcana that comes in a black slipcase box, you'll know that it comes with a folio copy of not only the Tomb of Rahotep, which is the precursor to Tomb of Horrors, but the folio copy of the Tomb of Horrors. This man is the one who originally scared the living shit out of high-level characters with his artwork and illustrations in the Tomb of Horrors. The Great Green Devil Face, Tracy's work. The Four-Armed Gargoyle. The final apotheosis of a Scissorak there in his skull form, sitting on the plinth in his... Oh,
don't forget all the traps.
And all the traps. And you had, was it 28 illustrations in 14 days or 14 illustrations in 28 days? I forget.
I think it was... I think it was 20-something in like a month.
Yeah. So you had
thereabouts.
you had a nice narrow window to do that, and I think that you
Yeah, I
know,
had to crank them out. That's for sure. Because they were taking that to, they were going to take it and debut it at Origins,
mm-hmm.
and so it was like a mad scramble to, hey, we got to have this for Origins. So
Now I think it speaks volumes that Gary came to you. I mean that had to be just like, yes, Gary has chosen me and my artwork to illustrate his trap-filled dungeon of horrors. I mean that
yeah,
had to be,
it
you know.
it definitely was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that it got reproduced. And the cool kicker is they did it in the digest format. They made it look like an original D&D module from back then, and I think that is just so cool.
Yeah, I have but a single gripe with it. Is it's like 3/4 of an inch too big to fit into an OD&D box. So I got to keep
Yeah,
it in the Art and Arcana set. It doesn't fit on the shelf with the other actual OD&D booklets, so I can't just put it in with my other OD&D books. But it is a kick, and we've done like an overview of the Tomb of Horrors and the Lost Tomb of Rahotep, which is not illustrated by you or by anyone. It's just a series of maps by I've gone blank. Alan Lucian. Alan Lucian did Tomb of Rahotep, and that was kind of Gary's inspiration for Tomb of Horrors. But you did the original, and that was how people were introduced, and that had to be a huge deal, because I mean at that point, other than a dungeon master flipping through his OD&D set going, oh, okay, that's what a tree ant looks like. Here's a fully illustrated, plotted out adventure handed out to DMs to run
yeah,
at a con. So I mean, that was that must have been quite the rush at the time. So you guys were creating like the full multimedia experience for the nascent DM, and that's just too cool. So
yeah, definitely good times.
oh yeah. So you talked
Let me
about
get rid of this here.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So
Go ahead.
yeah, so I was just going to say, so that was like that was some unpublished art, and I think I might have shown that to you before.
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen the ghoul illustration.
of course, not to not the audience at large here today, but um, yeah, so that stuff I found last year in an old portfolio that was like dusty and covered with all sorts of other stuff on top of it, and it just got lost. I didn't even know I had it, and then I opened it up and I'm like, oh, look at this. It's like 1977, 1979. It was kind of wild to see stuff that you thought was lost forever. So I was really
Yeah.
glad to run across that and then be able to have those. And I'll be doing prints of those too at some point, I think.
Well, I think you're going to have a line of people wanting prints of those, because that is, I mean, I keep coming. I think it bears repeating. Coming to foundational artwork. It's why we perceive, and I say this to my audience, but it is why we perceive. Let me pop this up here real quick. It's why we perceive D&D the way we perceive D&D. There is the cover of the Origins Tomb of Horrors module. But we perceive D&D the way we do through what you guys bring to the table. And, you could write the best role-playing game in the world, and without illustrations, nobody's going to buy it. You know,
Right.
if you just print it up in a textbook and it's all tables and charts, it's just not going to spark the imagination. This, the artwork we've seen tonight. Oh, you got your Paladin illustration up. I'm going to put that up. This sparks the imagination. So tell us about this piece, the Paladin's Charge, because
Okay.
that is a book cover, is it not?
Yeah, it's part of the book cover without all the indicia and stuff like that, like the title and all that. I have images of that as well, but I just wanted to sort of isolate just the artwork part of it, and I thought it made for like a nice sort of display piece. But for those of you that don't know, I have written a book as well called Armor of God, the Paladin, and it's available wherever books are sold. Sound like a commercial? It's all over the place.
I'm going to, let's see. Now, do you have an affiliate link or anything on Amazon, or?
I have my author's page. I mean, if you go there and you type my name, it's going to come up.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to share this.
It's at Barnes & Noble, iTunes, et cetera, everywhere.
You can go check that out. Pick up a copy of Armor of God by Tracy Lesch. And what is the book about? It's about 250 pages. But no, what is it? I'm guessing with like Paladin in the title and that beautiful cover art that this is a fantasy novel. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It's about a young man who, he's grown up as basically a farmer's son, and then one day a monk from a monastery comes through their town, and he ends up listening to him, and he's so fascinated by what he hears, he decides to leave home and try that sort of lifestyle for himself. And through that, he ends up coming across Pope Urban, who started the First Crusade. And he finds himself
historical fantasy.
Yeah, it's fantasy mixed with actual historical events. And so he joins the First Crusade, and we see his adventures all through that. And then after Jerusalem falls, he becomes disenchanted and leaves to come back home. But he's estranged from his parents now because he went and did this. His father didn't want him to. He thought it was like ridiculous and an entirely false quest. So, and through that, as he's gone, when he's gone away, I'm telling this out of order. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
He comes back, and his family gets murdered, and so there's a big mystery over why, and he just becomes very much filled with vengeance, and then he actually asks for revenge. And the answer is, in a nutshell, that he becomes the steward of the armor of God. And each piece of armor has like supernatural capabilities. And then he's put on a quest to eliminate evil in the human world, like demons, monsters, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And so he uses the armor to combat them. So he's almost like a medieval superhero in a sense. Because the armor is almost like, superhero gear. It does this, it does that.
Right. So
the whole question of the book, though, is a discussion really on what is justice and what is vengeance. And what's the difference between the two. And the main character, Jean Baptiste, who becomes the paladin, has to kind of sort this all out as the adventure goes on.
Mm-hmm.
It's 396 pages. It's, I think it came out to be like 5,000 as far as word count.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a nice meaty book. It's not like a little, it's a novella that somebody wanted to come up with. It's a nice meaty book, and most of the people that reviewed it said it was difficult for them to put down. I actually had somebody yell at me because they got in trouble at work because they were late because they had to read the next chapter is what they told me. I was like, oh, that's very gratifying. That's one of the nicest things that a writer can hear, that you captivated them and they really had to keep reading the story to find out what happened next. So.
Oh yeah. I mean,
anyway,
without a doubt. I mean, I couldn't draw Stickman, but I'm a pretty okay writer. So getting that kind of feedback from somebody like, yeah, I could not stop reading what you were writing is a phenomenal thing. And I feel like, I feel like to make that jump from art to the written word, that is a pretty neat and pretty impressive thing to do. Now, I will ask you this, at the risk of eating spoilers, if you don't want to say either way, because you're like, hey, I don't want to spoil the book. First of all, does it lend itself to a sequel? And second of all, if it does, is that something you plan on doing?
Yeah, I have planned 2 other books. So it would, at the very least, it would be a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first one is the Paladin. The second one is going to be the Heretic. And then the third one, I'm still toying with what I want to land on as far as the title. But in the third one, I'm having Vlad Dracula make an appearance in the book.
Nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of horror themes, we got a little little bit of bloody mindedness on the screen. Now, what are we looking at here?
Oh, this was I really love the Resident Evil series. And this is a character they came up with for one of the later sequels. And he's called the Executioner. And if you saw the movie he's in, he's just huge. Mm-hmm. And he goes after 2 of the characters in like an abandoned bathroom, and there, water's going everywhere, and he's swinging that I guess you'd call it an axe, and throwing it around, and he's like huge. This guy's like 12 feet tall, and I just loved him. So I was like, you know what, I want to do a picture of that just for myself.
That's a nice one. That is.
You can see the umbrella logo on the wall in the back.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I have seen this piece before, and you've told me it's from Resident Evil. You never mentioned that until now, and I just now caught it. It's like I was always looking at like the triangle that the character forms, that classic, that classic, like, you're an artist, you know what I'm talking about, the triangle, man. Yeah. But now that it's there, I can't unsee it, which makes sense because it's actually on the drawing. So that is Trace cool, man.
I like that series. A lot of people don't. They think it's kind of crap, but I don't know. I like it. I like Mila in it. I think.
What's not to like about Mila Jovovich? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And her husband owned the franchise. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's a director. And of course, she was the actress playing Alice in the series.
Right.
A series which spawned 6 movies, so not too shabby.
Yeah.
Good on them. They did a good job.
People obviously want to go see him,
And Mila's awesome. I'll watch anything with Mila. She did a great Joan of Arc. in one movie. I think it was called The Messenger.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I know that I know by title the film you're talking about, but I have not seen that one. No.
Yeah,
But
let me.
that is a good one.
I'm getting
Now,
something here for you.
while Tracy's pulling that up, if you're not familiar with the piece that he did, my heart beats still. That is gorgeous. I love the Chimera attack. That is, and it's not just because it's from my AD&D game, guys. Okay, so save your Rotten Tomatoes for later. It is that is a scene from the AD&D game Tracy plays in, and I love it. I love everything about that illustration because he did his backstab on the Chimera was the finishing blow. It was what took the Chimera down. And any D&D fans are going to say, but Bella, Chimera doesn't have a back. Right there, from the goat's head to its butt. What do you call that, huh? I mean, they're not called baby opposite of front ribs. Animals have backs, so he's backstabbing. So that is Cain the Thief, gigging a Chimera in an AD&D First Edition game, and
Which was a hell of a lot of fun.
Yes, the ongoing Monday night game is a lot of fun, and once again, for the people in the back, yes, I have 12 players. Yes, I keep them all engaged. Yes, they do enjoy it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. So I occasionally get people who are like, well, that can't be fun. How do you even do that? I'm like, God, would you just not worry about whether or not it's fun? And, you know,
and we had two of these bad boys to deal with in that adventure.
At separate times, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
On separate occasions. But in this particular one, Cain leaped to the foray and stabbed one in the back. So thieves aren't just for picking pockets, guys.
I have a blast playing a thief, and I never had before. Mm-hmm. So this has just been a load of fun for me because there's so many skills that I can call into play during the adventure, and it's a good time. And I think the thief plays well with the other members of the party too. I mean, that's my thought.
Oh yeah. The Monday night group is a large mechanism with many moving parts in it, and I'm amazed week to week at what you guys come up with to keep moving forward. And I am equally happy that I have that group there. So trust me, the appreciation is mutual, Tracy.
Awesome. I know sometimes we get too cerebral about it. And here's something I doodled during our game.
Yeah, this is just like something Tracy knocked out during one of the games. So, you know, when you talk about the gifted artist, Josh chimes in over on YouTube and says, I like the conversation between Mila and Dustin Hoffman at the end of Joan of Arc.
Yeah,
good stuff.
I'm gonna have to watch it again now.
Right on. But yeah, this little dwarfillo is just something he did just cause, you know. It's like, if I'm playing, which is rare, I'm usually DMing, but DMing is playing, but you guys know what I mean. If I'm running a character and I'm waiting for my turn to come up, I'm stacking my dice and seeing, oh, okay, the D20 and then the D10 and then the D10 on top of that, and see if I can balance it. Tracy's over here making like legendary art.
Yeah, but let me just say, I want to qualify it. I only did that because I get inspired by what we're doing with the game, and so it's like, oh man, I gotta draw something while we're playing. I just I just, feel the vibe,
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad that I can inspire folks like that at the game, and that everyone
Oh
has
yeah.
fun. I mean, we have quiet players, we have players that take center stage, we have players who act with great violence during combat, and then kind of go back to a secondary role. Um, but I'll tell you this: everybody seems to have a good time, and that's ultimately the goal as a DM, is to make sure that the players are having fun. I mean, I had this is years ago. I was running a game at a con, and somebody at my game was painting a miniature, like just working on layering just like 3 shades of blue or something like that. And I would say,
Cool.
go around the table and I'd say, okay, person A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, hello, person I, hello. Hey, it's your turn. It's I'm sorry. Uh, I missed. Okay. And then, we'd go back. And finally, I ran into them later at the con and I said, I was feeling salty about it. I'm just going to say that, guys. So I'm not the most polite person in the world sometimes. So, I just kind of bumped into him as we were looking at some crap in the dealer's room. And I said, hey, I'm sorry my game wasn't better. I'm sorry you were bored at the table. And he just kind of gave me this shocked look and said, no, I loved your game. Your game was amazing. I was like, all right, I'm going to quiz this guy. What was your favorite part? And then he rattles off the penultimate, not the ultimate battle, which in my opinion was the better part of the adventure. And I was like, oh yeah, well, you were painting, so I thought, your mind was maybe elsewhere. And he's like, oh, no. I just get in creative moods and modes. I was listening to your game. I was just, it just kind of charged up my brain. And I when it wasn't my turn, it wasn't my turn. So I was like, okay, all right, that's cool. So,
Yeah, you get the itch.
you get the itch to create. You really do. You really do.
Let me show you the new. Okay, so you saw the Chimera one. That's like number one of this series, and I'm thinking of doing four. But if anybody out there thinks it should be bigger, let me know. But here's I want to debut the second Kane piece of artwork.
Oh yeah. I've wanted to see this for a while. So the setup for this is that
Yeah, please explain.
so basically the party was exploring some natural caverns and such that were peopled with goblins, and there's now, in my mind's eye, the players don't know this, but I'll kind of tip my hat. It was from tens of hundreds of thousands of years before, in Greyhawk's history. It was a water flow from a glacier had worn out the tunnel, and then it had cascaded over a cliff. Well, the only remnants of that is this underground lake right near the cliff. And the party sets about crossing this lake to go to the far shore, which is really only, maybe 15, 20 yards deep until there's the drop off of the underground cliff that goes just literally abysmally deep. And then there's other things that they found down there. But so I'm sitting there and I've kind of got in a mental map of what's going on and where. And I'm checking for wandering monsters, and I'm like, wandering monsters, what are they going to be? Let's check the percentile dice. I pull up my little app, my little Dungeon Master's Assistant, and it was like zombies, and it was max number of zombies. And I'm like, let's see, they're at the lake. It's zombies. The zombies are in the water. aquatic I mean, you're paddling across the lake. What's better than having zombies like leap up out of the water and start attacking the party? Nothing. That's what. So that was the situation. And once again, what can I say? I struck an inspirational note for Tracy, and we have this illustration. Let me see if I can bring that back. Can you bring that back up for? There it is. Okay. So, you've got basically the Cain the thief squaring off against some of the undead in the water there. So that's the setup for that piece, and that's good. What's going to happen is you're going to have the Monday group asking for character portraits if you're not careful. But I'm not going to be the person responsible for burdening you with having to do a bunch of illustrations. But anyway,
no one has said anything yet, so I'm safe.
Okay, but that's that is some more amazing. I think it's safe to call it this. I'm going to call it this. I don't care if I get a cease and desist from anybody. I call the cops. I don't give a fuck. This is fine Dungeons and Dragons artwork. All right. If I was flipping through a classic D&D module and I came across that, I'd be like, aces. As it is, I think it's aces anyway. But you get what I'm saying. Like, that would have easily fit in any of your classic D&D books. And I challenge anybody out there to say otherwise. I like it a lot. I think it's a great piece.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, you're very deserving of it, sir. You're very deserving of it.
Hopefully I can keep on producing stuff like this. And, I hope to eventually be able to have prints available for people that want to get them.
Yeah, I get folio number 00001, guys. I'm just letting you know that. I'm buying that one. The rest of you guys can get the higher serial numbers. It'll be the
super limited edition.
Yeah, so just don't even start pestering the man. I got dibs on the Cain set. And I'm sure I can get some money saved off the price with a little bit of extra XP for Cain. But anyway, sure. So what is new in your art? What is are you working on anything other than that mere sketch of the dwarf that's like better than anything that like I've seen people put like dozens of hours into? What have you got going on art-wise that's new?
Kind of roughing out, planning the next two in the Cain series.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, gut-wise, I'm thinking, 4 in the series, but maybe more if, I don't know, if somebody were to tell me I think it supports more, then I'd like maybe do another 2 based on the actual adventures that are happening to the character of Cain.
Right on.
And there's I already have so much to draw from, but I picked 2 particular things I want to do. I'm almost loath to give anything away.
Well, no, it's cool. You play that close to your chest, man.
Well, I'm thinking Shoggoth.
Yes, I sicked a Shoggoth right out of Deities and Demigods onto the party. It hit for literally next to no damage. Like a first level, not a magic user, because it did 5 points of damage. A first level magic user with a con of 18 would have shrugged off the damage that the Shoggoth did. And then this bunch of vandals, this bunch of Visigoths who do nothing but traipse through my adventures and loot and burn and destroy my beautiful creations, took my poor innocent protoplasmic horror and sliced it to ribbons. It was dead in a minute. But
it was an accident.
It was sorry, Bill. Oh, it's a
Wasn't
Shoggoth. Oh, gosh.
wasn't me.
Yeah.
Wasn't me.
We do have a question for you, though. This
Oh,
is
okay.
from Volcano God, local buddy of mine, actually. Did you play
Coolness.
D&D when you were doing work for TSR? If so, how does the Monday night game compare to those games? Any big difference?
Uh, big difference. Mm, I'd have to say, and I'm not blowing smoke here. Um, Bill is an amazing DM. Okay. And I think in a lot of cases that makes all the difference as to whether you're going to have a good time, an okay time, or a crappy time. And I always look forward to Monday nights because I know somewhere in there we're going to have some fun. We're going to joke around. We're going to have a good adventure. We're going to face some challenging stuff. We might walk off with, like, bags of platinum coins. Um, the nomenclature remains the same from that time, and plus we're playing first edition, so it's sort of like I don't know, it's sort of like no time has passed when we're actually playing. And I think about playing with the guys that I used to. Um, I was probably more of a smartass back then, but no, it's just good times. I don't know if I can elaborate any further.
Right on. Right on. Well, I hope that answers at least part of your question for you there, Volcano God. Um,
Unless Volcano God meant to have the. Are you talking about like rules changes and things like that, or because we're playing first edition, so whatever was in there back then, we're doing today.
exactly. That's how I roll. No pun intended. That
We go
is
old school,
yes. And
and it's awesome.
I think what you enjoy, what you're doing at the tabletop, it's your own jam. I make a big deal out of being the grumpy old get off my lawn D&D guy, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you're having fun, then you're playing D&D right.
Well, you put a lot of, and it's apparent, you put a lot of hard work into it. You're not just
A
flying
little.
by the seat of your pants. Where it's going, what we're doing, and it's sort of like a feeling of you feel secure, I guess.
Yeah,
That we're
I've done it for so long. I mean, and really it's now this is an illustrator as much as I do. There are people who can go out and buy like Winsor Newton art supplies and the most expensive vellum in the world, and they can take all the classes and have all the how-to art books, and God bless them, they can put pencil to paper, but they can't make art. And then
right.
there's people that can take a number 2 pencil and a ream of printer paper and turn out comic book, like published comic book level. Oh, considering what I've seen in published comic books lately, that's not a tall order, so let's maybe crank that up a little
Yeah.
bit and say professional level art, good, like I would pay money for this level of art. It's in the person. And I mean, I've gamed with people who have played for almost as long as I have, who would never DM. One of the better DMs I know gamed with me for 4 or 5 years, and then she ran a short campaign for my birthday, and I was like, holy crap, you are a really, really skilled DM. And I mean, of course, she was like, oh, but you taught me. And I'm like, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
You've got your own verve going on. You've got your own thing. And good DMing is like, anybody can read the rule books. Anybody can say, room 1, this is a musty room. 4 angry orcs sit around a table. Okay, you're going down the hall. Let me see. All right, something approaches. and then they roll on the Wandering Monster table. It is another group of and then people can make you feel like you're watching a high-end fantasy film or science fiction or detective, whatever. They can bring you into the moment. And it's a skill, one that you can hone, one that you can develop. But if if God love you, if you don't have your Kirby hand, you don't have your Kirby hand. And you know what I mean? You guys,
yeah,
keep your Kirby hand strong. There's people who have it and there's people who don't. And it just, was I a great DM to begin with? Not, probably not, but I was the only person willing to do it. And, I picked up my guitar and played, and I do a fair to middling job. So,
I've DM'd one time, and it wasn't even D&D.
Okay, what game was it?
It was it came from the Late Show.
Oh yeah, yeah. You talked about that the last time you were on. That did you? Okay, quick question, because I know you and I have talked about this, and I know you've talked about it on the show, and this is more of my Swiss cheese memory.
Yeah.
Did you do like rules design and writing on that, or just illustrations? So you did work on the rules. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was like each book was like an assemblage of different adventures, and they were done by different people. And because the second book was already going to be coming out, I didn't make the first book, but I bought the rules, and I thought it was such a blast that I connected with the guys that wrote it, and then so then they got me for illustrations in the second book. And then I said, well, I think I could write a module for this if you give me a shot. And they did. And so, the premise of the game is that you are in a B movie. Okay. So you've got all your tropes and your B movie type characters. And instead of a game master, it's like a movie director. And they can do things where, like, in the rules, there was like, if you get into trouble or the players get into trouble, you can do a film where the film burns.
Right.
I don't. There's like a name for it that they used in the book, and cuts and so on and so forth. So I being like a huge fan of kaiju movies, I said, well, the only genre they hadn't done yet was like the Japanese monster movie. So I came up with a module called Gamera versus the Space Asparagus. And it all took place on like an island with natives and a group of scientists that were there to find an artifact. It was like and they find all these hieroglyphs with a turtle on them. And they're trying to figure out what that's all about. Meanwhile, the asparagus from space are infiltrating the island, and they're cutting people's heads off and then shoving a seed pod down their neck to create more space asparagus.
Wow. That sounds like a pip, dude.
It was a lot of fun. I don't know how you can get one. I don't think there's any PDFs out there. Well, there may be. I haven't checked lately, but oh my God, it was a blast. And so that was like the one and only time I DM'd, because it was my own module, so I knew it backwards and forwards, and I had a bunch of people come over and play all the parts of the actors, and it was a really good time. But I've never like DM'd D&D or anything like that.
Well, it's one of those
things. Gamera versus the space asparagus, I can handle that.
Gamera versus the space asparagus. I need to see that in action one day. One Monday night, I'm just going to put my feet up on my desk and plop my headphones on and say, "We're not playing D&D tonight. Tonight, you're going to fight Gamera or you're gonna fight the space asparagus people. But that will have to be an event that will create a story that we'll talk about the next time you're on.
Oh, for sure.
So what? I know you've got stuff to do, and we've been going almost 2 hours. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, has it been that long?
It's not. It's 9:16.
Feels like a half hour.
We started at 7. I know, right? So I'm not going to cut you off short or anything like that. If you want to keep going, I mean, we can go as long as you want. But so I'm gonna ask you this. You gamed now. You said you gamed with Rob and Terry Kuntz.
Yeah.
Are there specific aspects of Rob and Terry's games? Because I know we've got a lot of fans and historians of the game, and Rob and Terry's contributions to it. Do you remember what are some notable things maybe from those, if you remember them?
Well, those guys, well, I could probably say this of a bunch of people, but the Kuntzes had they were very strong personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And I came away admiring them very, very much because when they would do the adventure, it's like they had every detail down. And I was like, I can't get my mind to work that way. I mean, it was like meticulously detailed and planned out. Like, do you know people that like they can come up with a contingency plan for just about anything? That's what their game was like. Everything was figured out. At least I thought so. If it wasn't, then I have to give them even more credit and say that, hey, that's kind of genius right there. You could do that on the fly,
They were the GMs who were ready for the player to sneak up to the sleeping giant, gently slip a carrot into its nose, and then cast plant growth to kill him through cerebral hemorrhage. It's like, no, the giant is wearing a mask. He sleeps with a sleeping mask on.
Exactly. So they were like just super, super smart guys, and a lot of fun. And Terry was pretty sarcastic, as I remember.
I was wearing, and I'm looking at the hat. It's across the room. I'm not going to go get it. But when I played with Rob Kuntz as DM one time at Milwaukee Game Fest in 2004, I think it was, and Rob and I didn't know each other really much at all. I had met him that afternoon, but it was still Game Fest was intended to replace Gen Con, as it was held around the same time in the same space that Gen Con had been held. And it was, if you've never been to Gen Con when it was in Milwaukee, that's a really big hall. It's in like the Milwaukee Civic Center or something like that. And there were maybe a couple of hundred people in that space. So now you probably got a good mental image of how vacant it was. So despite there being a fairly large group at Gary and Rob's table, because they were co-DMing us through some Castle Greyhawk using the Castles and Crusades rules, I had talked to Rob that afternoon and so on, and it started to get to know him a little bit. And but it still wasn't like, we were simpatico, we're best friends now or anything like that. I was wearing my purple wizard hat. It travels well. I just gotta like crumple it up and stick it.
I love that hat.
Bag. So it was my purple wizard hat, and Rob's going around the table like I do on Monday night. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to think of what to do. And I said, he gets to me and he points to me and he says, You in the hat. What are you doing? Just as droll, just you in the hat. And I said, I looked at him and Gary and I was just like, because I had nothing to do. I had no spell, we're marching along. I've got all blast and firepower spells and not really much in the way of utility. And I'm like, I endeavor to persevere. And Gary, without missing a beat, kind of looks over at his dice tray and picks up a couple of dice and goes, "You succeed." So that was my gaming with Rob, and I didn't mean to step on your toes there.
No, not at all,
with Rob. But so very quick-witted, the Kuntz brothers. And you said you gamed with Skip Williams too?
Yeah, with Skip and Jeff Leeson and Dave Conant. I'm sure I'm forgetting some other people.
What any huge memorable events at their tables?
Other than the ventriloquism story, nothing really huge.
The ventriloquism story. Okay, all right. So I think the ventriloquism story is probably one of the funnier no shit there I was D&D stories that I've ever heard. And that's including stuff like the head of Vecna or Eric versus the gazebo. So why don't we wrap up this evening? Tell us the ventriloquism story, because the audience is going to love this.
Alrighty. Before I do, were there any more questions or anything on the...
Oh yes. Any other questions? I'm gonna run up through comments and make sure that I didn't miss anybody. A couple complaints about the video, and I don't mean complaints like "How dare you, sir?" I just there were technical issues. I don't have a shit ton of bandwidth, so I apologize to those of you. Kool-Aid was commenting earlier that said my video had gone to like a freeze frame, but the audio was still going. So I apologize for that, Kool-Aid. Josh, of course, we got his comment about Mila Jojovic and Dustin Hoffman. Ricky Maru gigging me about the Tuesday game. Ricky, I love you guys in the Tuesday game too. It's all good, man. Because yes, Tracy, I am that crazy. I run a 4-hour game from 10 in the evening till 1 in the morning, and then on Tuesday from 12:30 to 1:30 in the afternoon.
You should sleep sometime. That would be good.
I'll sleep when I'm dead. And
I like the cut of your jib, sir.
As luck would have it, that man died that day. Sorry, it's my best. God, I can picture.
I like your Christopher Walken.
Yeah. Please, Tracy, don't make me do the impression. It's a little embarrassing. I'll stab you in the face with a soldering iron. Awig, we were talking about comic books and talking about comic book art and somebody picking up a pencil. And Awig, there's a distinction. Old comic books. That was Mike Kirby hand comic. Good comic books. Not some of the newer stuff. There is a lot of the new stuff, which is very competent. Then there are artists that I've seen on their little Tumblr blogs and Twitter feeds where they say they deliberately make bad art to piss off fanboys. And I say,
whoa.
For
I'm not down with that.
Who do that. Don't abuse your customers like that.
No, and if you're getting paid, it's like that's sort of a sacred pact with the fan base, and I mean you should be thankful that you're able to even have a crack at doing that.
Well, this is an interesting cross. I like the majority of Taiki Wada's work. I think Thor 3 was just oodles of fun. That thing oozed like a 1980s issue of Thor vibe to me. I loved Thor, the third Thor movie. I think he did a fantastic job on Jojo Rabbit, Jojo Rabbit will just tear your heart out. That's it. It's like, this is hilarious despite the back. Oh God. And then it kind of goes back to being funny again. But what we do in the shadows is a Larry show. But he sits on, he went to a Comic-Con and said on a panel, "I will ruin Thor fandom." Like, why would you say that? Why would you threaten to shit on something that people are lining up to give you money for? Just because you can. Don't do that.
I'm sorry, if you're doing that, to me, that's like you're going to piss in the face of Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Yeah. Really.
Because that's not your product. It's like these artist and writer teams, they're Johnny-come-latelys. They come in and they get to work with characters that were not created by them, that have their own legend, and then you want to come in and mess with it. It's like you might, that'd be like if Jack Kirby were standing there and you kicked him in the balls. I mean, that's not cool. You should be happy that you're getting to work with such an iconic character. It's like somebody asking you, "Hey, can you come in and draw Superman for us?" It's like, that's huge. And to say, well, I'm going to do a crappy job on it because I just want to piss some people off. It's like, I don't know. I'm not down with that. That's not cool.
Me either.
Disrespectful.
So yes, AWIG, we are definitely talking about old comic books when we talk comic books on this channel, which is rare because it's mostly RPG stuff. There's a slight bit of crossover, but we'll save that for another time. So I think we're caught up on questions there. So why don't we ride into the sunset after you tell us the ventriloquism story, because I've been nattering you off and on all evening for a fun gaming story, for another fun gaming story. First of all, who is the DM at this game?
Thinking. I believe, I want to say Skip. And I think I was playing, I think it was Skip and Jeff Leeson and Dave Conant and some other folks. And then me, I was like the Johnny-come-lately. But, yeah, so I came in like amongst a bunch of experienced characters. I had to like roll my character up and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just ended up with this pitiful elf. Okay. And as luck would have it, my stats like pretty much sucked. And the only thing I really had any talent at was ventriloquism. And so I'm just kind of going along for the ride. I'm like in the back of the party, just kind of waiting to get killed because my character sucked. And so, I survived long enough for us to get to a treasure room with a dragon in it. And of course, the dragon wants to off us, and we're like in sort of a dire position. And what I decided to do was, using the ventriloquism skill, I started to make the sound of a dragon of the opposite sex that was in heat a few rooms away. And incredulously, I made the roll to succeed at that. And the next thing you know, and here I am amongst this party of like, powerful fighters, et cetera, and I think the DM, whoever the DM was, I think it was Skip, but he says, yeah, and you see the dragon kind of get up off the pile of treasure and kind of hastily run into the other room. And I was like, yes. Ventriloquism wins the day.
Ventriloquism wins the day. All you got to do to defeat a dragon is try and sound like a horny one.
Yep.
But that is, I love that. I first heard that story. I heard that story for the first time live when we were doing a live stream with the guys over at the Gods and Monsters live stream podcast. And I about died. I about fell over the table. We were sitting there. It was May the 4th. I had just met Tracy, and he tells me that he's telling this story, and I about fell out, man. That was, to quote Thin Lizzy, man, I just fell about the place. So... Thank you.
Been there. I got a lot of dirty looks. Like, the look that says, "Oh, you have got to be effing kidding me." That actually worked. I was like, "Well, hey, you roll the roll. You can do lots of amazing stuff as long as you make your roll."
Damn right. As my buddy Kyle, my co-host, who will be back next week, I will do the schedule right next time, guys. Says sometimes the dice get to tell a story that neither the dungeon master nor the players expected to happen. Well, all right, yep. Tracy. So when are you going to be back? When do we get to have you back for more stories and fun and artwork and cool stuff?
We'll do something. We'll do something soon. We'll do something soon. I'll try to make it more of a. I mean, if you folks want it, I'll make it more of. I'll try to be more of a regular thing.
Well, I'm the host. I want it. So
yeah,
y'all can just sit there and listen to awesome stories from a great. He's down there now, but awesome stories from one of the classic Dungeons and Dragon artists. And I'm not afraid to say this, one of the foundational people from TSR from back in the day. Well, whenever you're back, we look forward to having you back, and awesome. We will greet you with open arms. So thank you, Tracy Lesch. Thank you, everyone who tuned in tonight with great questions and comments and watching the stream. And please remember, if you just stopped by just to say hello, just to check this out, because you found us on Facebook or YouTube, please click that like button, click that subscribe button, leave a comment below, and every little bit helps. So really appreciate it. Y'all have an absolutely fantastic evening. I'll be back tomorrow. Almost certainly it will be tomorrow night for a late night stream. I got some stuff up in the air happening on a staycation, but I will be back. It'll maybe be a little bit more impromptu than usual, but I got a few things I might want to talk about. So
if anyone wants to connect with me, I'm on, Facebook, and I'm on the Twitter.
All right. What are you at Twitter? I will put that in the comments. What are you at Twitter?
I think it's just Tracy Lesch at Twitter. Wait, hold on. I should probably go out there more.
See if people have tweeted things to you. I've said this about Twitter. I will say this in parting about Twitter because not this past summer, but the summer before, I got on Twitter to kind of promote things, and I had a lot of good conversation with people just about D&D. Twitter kept attempting to make me argue politics and social outrage things with it. I'd be doing I'd check my Twitter feed to see if anybody had responded to something, and in that bar on the right, it's like, you want to talk about Donald Trump? And I'm like, no, I don't. You could follow this guy over here. I'm like, no, that guy has nothing to do with D&D. What do you do? It kept trying to drag me in, it was crazy. So,
yikes. Yeah, it's at Tracy Lesch on Twitter. Pretty simple.
All right. I will copy pasta that for those of you who wish to follow Tracy. And also over on the Book of Faces. And they can find you, Tracy Lesch, on Facebook, yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you again, Tracy, very much for being here. And thank you, everyone, for watching. Y'all have an absolutely wonderful evening. I couldn't do this without you. Wouldn't do this without you. So take care. Peace.
Take care, everybody.